Hi, everybody. This is Jonathan from College Greenlight. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. We're going to wait for a few more people to arrive. Those that are here, please don't be shy and let us know where you are, where you're coming from, and the name of your organization. You can use the chat where it says "say something nice." Yeah, let us know who you are and where you are. Thank you, and we'll start in about a minute. Thank you. Hello, Greenlight community. Thank you for joining us today. I am Jonathan April, the General Manager of College Greenlight. I have been with Greenlight since it was an idea a long time ago, back in 2012. Thank you for being here and being part of our nationwide community supporting first-gen students on their way to and through college. We are thrilled to have 2 online events this week with Gettysburg College. It's Gettysburg Week at Greenlight. We feel this is incredibly timely as Pennsylvania, Gettysburg home, has been the focus of all of our national attention. In addition, Gettysburg has been such a great champion of access over the years that it means a lot to College Greenlight to have them on our stage. Today, we have a wonderful event for you, our counselor community. Thursday, we will have a special event for your students entitled From a Liberal Arts College to the Executive Suite. That's going to be a great event. Daryl will be back, so please share that event with your students. There's a link at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, make sure that you forward that to your students because it's going to be a really special event. We have an incredible event incredible team from Gettysburg that you can see on the bottom of your screen presenting today's webinar. We have an hour blocked for today's event, approximately 45 minutes for the workshop, and 15 minutes for questions. Don't be shy. Ask any questions that you have in the Ask a Question box. You can also ask them in the chat, but we would prefer to keep them organized by putting them in the Ask a Question box. Gettysburg has also provided a few polling questions that they will ask you throughout today's workshop. You can answer them now, or you can wait till they come up in context. And now to today's presentation. I'm going to pass it over to our good friend Gerald Jones, who will lead things off.
Thank you so much, Jonathan, for having us, and thank you, Greenlight, for having it be Gettysburg Week. We know that's a special privilege. And to all the folks joining us from coast to coast, welcome to our webinar on Persistence Path to High School Diploma. What we're going to talk about today is not just about Gettysburg College, but really about how it is that we can get your students to ask the right question to make the right college choice. So with me today will be my colleague Gail Sweezy, who is our Dean of Admission. And again, I'm Daryl Jones, our Senior Associate Director of Admission and Coordinator for Multicultural Admission. And then my colleague Tyra Crosby, who is joining us today, who, along with the entire admission staff at Gettysburg College, is a leader in taking part in our entire work in diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to admissions. So here's what we know. It's not about getting to college. Remember the old days when people said, well, it's just about access. It's just about getting to college. We know that that's not the case anymore. We know it's about getting through to the diploma, and actually, truthfully, it's about getting past the diploma and having outcomes. So we're going to talk about all of those things today. Because as we serve you, we know this. Our first-gen students and any students who are underrepresented in any way, especially in selective higher education, don't need more barriers. They don't need more hurdles. So we are going to do what we can to help. And now, Gail Sweezy.
Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be with you this afternoon. We'll talk today about access in admissions and the ways in which Gettysburg College works with community-based organizations. For me, college admissions is all about building community, and I love that. And at Gettysburg, our students are coming from all over the world to be part of that community, and they're from every imaginable background. And of course, access is a key component to our admissions process, but it does not end there. It's also part of our campus experience, which leads to impressive retention and graduation rates for all of our students, but especially for our first generation college students. You know, we've talked about building community, and we can't do that without our relationships with counselors and also community-based organizations. At Gettysburg, we were one of the first colleges in the country to begin partnering with community-based organizations, and Philadelphia Futures was our very first partner back in 1999. We work directly with CBO and charter schools by providing fly-in opportunities and workshops on the application process. Our interest is in connecting with students and helping them to see that college is possible. So we know that a big part of all of this is asking the right questions, right? And that you work with your families to make that happen. So as you work with your students who deserve to go to college and have that full experience, we know that jargon and deadlines of the college admissions process is challenging for your families. We admire the work that you do, and we are interested in giving your students the extra assistance that they need. And part of that jargon, of course, is the poll that Daryl just zoomed past, which is the SAT and also the SAT. Can you tell us how many of your students this year have access to the SAT or ACT? So understanding admissions is really important and can be challenging for first generation college students. I don't know how many of you read today's Chronicle, but NACAC announced that they will have a task force designed to simplify the admissions and financial aid process. We know there is a lot for students to know when they're applying to college that can be confusing and arduous. And it is time, I know we can all agree to this, for reform. So we, in our admissions process, are always interested in working with community-based organizations and counselors in making it more accessible for students to apply to college. They participate in our virtual events or interviews. They have positive experiences. We do workshops with community-based organizations and do fly-in programs for students as well in order to help demystify the college process. We're working always at eliminating barriers for access. And Gettysburg has been test optional for more than a decade, right? And so students often ask us, what does that mean to be test optional? Will that be held against me in the admissions process? And I always tell students and counselors that we've been making admissions decisions without testing for years, and we're quite confident and capable in our abilities to really read a student and understand a student without their scores. Sometimes students are interested in sending their scores. They're proud of those scores. So self-reported is fine. They don't have to pay the fee to have them sent to us. And then, of course, we super score both that ACT and the SAT. We have a series of virtual interviews and virtual visit opportunities. They're scheduled every day and on weekends and evenings. We know your students are busy and that they have home responsibilities and that they're working, part-time and sometimes full-time jobs. And so we're available to talk with them, when they are available. Students applying to Gettysburg can select a fee waiver, and I've been doing admissions long enough to remember the days when it was complicated. You had to get signatures from what felt like 75 people just to have a fee waiver. So we've made it simple for students to get a fee waiver. They just simply go to the Common Application Gettysburg member screen and select the Gettysburg fee waiver dropdown. There's no forms needed. There's no questions asked. If you would like to let us know that a student is requesting a fee waiver, that is fine, but it's not necessary. So the Gettysburg admissions staff is really professionally trained, right? And we're organized in a way that we have regional representatives in our office, and they're all assigned to CBOs and charter schools in their region. Access is really important to all of us. We want to hear from you. Your opinions matter. We know that you care about your students. We know that you care about their college search process and also their college success. And so those advocacy calls during the application review process, and also before and also after, is really a key component to building relationships and helping students find the right fit and a college experience where they can shine and where they can make the most of all that it has to offer. So we know that all of you are busy. We have another poll here about your counseling workload.
So as you finish answering that poll about counseling workloads, really, we know that there are two parts to this process. One, of course, is about getting into college, and the other piece is about affordability, not just affordability to get into school, but also affordability to stay there for 4 years and live a full life, which we will talk about today. When it comes to understanding financial aid, obviously, we know that there are required forms and deadlines, the common ones being the free application for federal student aid and the CSS profile. But we also know that over 4 years, you want to maximize grants and other non-loan funds, and you want to minimize loans. You want to make sure things are consistent, and you want to look at the potential obstacles that may exist, whether they are, we're going to be generous the first year, but shrink things the next year, or we can't make adjustments because of COVID. And by the way, Gettysburg does. And then the dreaded non-custodial form. So I want you to know that we understand that Gettysburg College is rare in that we're one of the few places that does not require the non-custodial forms for anybody that you serve, because we know in some cases it's impossible if it's a split household, single parent, single custody household, and in others it may just emotionally traumatize them. We have a great service model in our financial aid office, so we actually have the same counselor work with your students from the first time they might fill out the net price calculator or make a call in high school until college graduation. So there's no need to retell your story over and over and over. And they are accessible. I know they're working hard now, packaging, repackaging, and packaging again the many people that we are retaining, because so many parents' employment situations changed because of COVID. But they are making themselves quite accessible via phone, email, and video chat. There is one great option for first gen and underrepresented students at Gettysburg College called the STEM Scholars Program, which began as a collaboration with the National Science Foundation. We loved it so much that we kept it going and we kept funding it. So it is one that is giving students special opportunities from a first year seminar, special research opportunities, and internships with industry partners. Every single penny of those financial aid packages means that students' needs will be met with just grants and absolutely no loans for their financial need. So that's something that we encourage you to have your students apply for. It is a competitive process, and kudos to Gettysburg College and its faculty. We just graduated our first cohort this past spring. And now my colleague Tyra will talk about access to necessities and things that deal with ongoing support and success in college. Tyra?
Right. So, you all work with a talented and amazing group of students, and it is a ton of work to get them past the application process, through the acceptance, into depositing, into enrolling, into being on campus. And so when they're on campus, the question is, what quality will their experience will they have, right? Will they actually get to experience the bountiful opportunities that the colleges have marketed in that process? And do they have access to that? And so some of those questions are, is housing guaranteed all 4 years, right? If it's not, that is a worry that will diminish their time on campus, because they're like, where am I living? What am I going to do? Do I need to have roommates? I now hate my roommate, right? You want to have these 4 years focused on work and research and opportunities, but then also actually have a great quality while you're there on campus, right? If an emergency occurs, how do they get home, right? You're thinking about getting them to campus right now, and some students aren't thinking about, ooh, I only have these breaks and I've planned for these breaks, but something has popped up. How do I get home? And then other miscellaneous things that will vary the quality of their experience on campus. And so for Gettysburg College, housing is guaranteed all 4 years completely. Over 90% of our students do choose to stay on campus. Off campus is not even far. So they're still members of this community. They're engaged with the community. They're eating in our dining hall. They're coming to the College Union building. They're doing events on campus. And so it's very much a residential kind of experience, and they are experiencing that all 4 years, right? If they are staying for breaks, some of your students might not have home situations that they want to go back to or should be going back to. What is available for them on campus? And so having them be able to stay on campus for Thanksgiving break, or being able to go to a professor's house for Thanksgiving and being welcomed there, that again is quality, and something that students don't always think about. We have an emergency fund, which COVID was very much an emergency. And in this time, we raised over $85,000 in that short span of time, in just the spring, for our students requesting funds from that emergency fund. So we helped over 170 students with over $91,000 allocated to get students home, to get them what they need, if they're staying with a friend, whatever that might be. So again, quality, what has popped up. Even, from not emergencies, but everyday things. Maybe they need deodorant. Maybe they need detergent. That is quality. If they don't feel like they are prepared to go to class, they might skip class, or they might, be embarrassed or do some things like that. But we have that cupboard, a mosaic cupboard, which is kind of like a pantry, and students can anonymously request what they need, go pick it up, and move on. They don't need to do anything else to be able to get access to those, because we know those things cost a lot of money. You go to Rite Aid, CVS, whatever it might be, for a little bit, and you are $50 lighter, 50, 60, however much. And then even more so, we also in COVID, not only did we give out that emergency fund, but we also sent hotspots and laptops to our students, because they're not just Gettysburg students on campus. they're Gettysburg students all the time. And so even when they're at home in a different state, in a different country, they're still Gettysburg students, and we try our best to support them across the board. And that is kind of the institutional view a little bit. To dive deeper, that Office of Multicultural Engagement is something you need to know on campus and something your students need to ask when they are on campus or before they get to campus, right? Who are the people who are going to bet on my success at every point, right? Is it just one office? Is it the entire college? Does that office only have one person? Is there a team behind them? Does their team talk to your team, right? Not only are they liaisons in the admissions office, but are they liaisons within whatever Office of Multicultural Engagement that college has? And so for Gettysburg College, our OME is fantastic, right? And they're working with us from the get-go. They're popping up, doing presentations during the recruitment process. They are doing pre-orientation, a way for students to be on campus before everybody else descends on campus, and get to know their peers, get to feel comfortable being here, and know the lay of the land, right? Again, setting them up for success, connecting them with the opportunities and the people that they need to know on campus, the tutors, the different offices, doing weekly meetings with our staff in the Office of Multicultural Engagement, right? They also help pay for students to get on and off campus. We have a good number of our students coming from those major cities, from Philly, from New York. So we'll do bus trips. Can't get home, can't pay for an Amtrak ticket, whatever it might be. Well, we do a bus trips because we know 30 students got to get back to New York, right? And so there's always something there through that Office of Multicultural Engagement that we provide at Gettysburg. And taking it even more so, that's the individual student, that's groups of students, right? But what are we doing as an institution to make sure that we're inviting students into a space that definitely supports their success? And so colleges can definitely talk about diversity, but diversity is just having a seat at the table. Inclusion means you're actually engaging in change and have a voice at that table. And so specifically, our executive director of the Office of Multicultural Engagement, he's an assistant vice president for College Life, and he's on President's Council. You also have Jean Arnold, right? She's our Chief Diversity Officer, and she's on President's Council. So you have these men and women who support our students from a higher level, and then also one-on-one in meetings back and forth.
Thank you so much, Tyra, for giving detail on what people should look for as they guide students through things. Here's part of what else we know. Lots of colleges and universities talk about things that they offer to your students, and they put them in flashy brochures, slick websites, all sorts of things. But let's be real, folks. If these opportunities are an added cost to people who already are lacking funds, is it allowing them to live a full life? So as you look at this slide, let's think about it. You know, if we talk about how great study abroad is, but don't supply the funds to do it, or the credits aren't available, if educational and cultural trips to different places are marketed, but people don't provide the funds, or if it's the difference between doing research after the first year in the sciences and having a summer job, we know what the choices are. But at Gettysburg, as an example, a scientific researcher can have their housing covered, they can get a stipend, and they're doing direct research with a faculty member. That's not a special privilege. That is right after the first year. So when it comes to looking at all these factors, you really need to ask, and families need to ask, about all these things you're marketing, is there an additional cost? At Gettysburg College, we've looked at those things for decades. So things like off-campus study, international study, which about 60% of our students do at least a semester. We cover the airfare, the financial aid, and scholarships travel with people. We even help out with things like the visa, the passport, and all those other things. We have a really amazing institute for public policy and leadership called the Eisenhower Institute, with an office at Gettysburg and an office in Washington, D.C., that might have students maybe doing an inside civil rights program or strategy and leadership in transformational times, in which they storm the beaches of Normandy with Susan Eisenhower, Ike's granddaughter. We pay for that. We pay for people to do immersion trips to Puerto Rico, the Gulf, and lots of other places, Nicaragua. When it comes to immersion trips for careers, because again, it is about outcomes. You know, again, if we say, well, we're having this great trip to Florida to talk about the industry of parks, recreation, entertainment for families, or we're doing one about Hollywood, or we're doing one in New York City about the finance industry, we're paying to take your students there. But here's a question for all of you, another poll. So obviously, when we're dealing with students who aren't privileged, and you can take that in whatever way you'd like, how have they struggled? What have the reasons been? So please answer that poll. I know with a lot of students that I work with in my particular geographic areas, the students might say all of the above, but certainly there might be reasons that are a little more salient than others for some. But here's what we know. None of these things that people put in their slick brochures on their websites that they market in their emails, I mean, they're not real. They don't matter unless they're both accessible to a wide range of people and they're affordable. So we've been working with, again, charter schools, community-based organizations for a long time so that we'd learn what those typical barriers are so that we could eliminate them. This is a list of questions. I know the font is kind of small, but we're going to be sending this to you, and we're going to give you this list of things that are things that you can give to families to ask about. You know, I mean, how do you know via campus life if you're happy there? Because let's face it, great schools, the economics, the business, the psychology programs, they're all great. They're all strong. But happiness is about life outside of the campus. Or if you're asking a question about diversity, is it diverse enough that students you serve would be happy? And that could be socioeconomically, it could be ethnically, it could be by first gen. So we'll be making sure that all of you receive this via email for being a part of this today. We'd like to know your questions. So if you can start, again, putting them in the ask a question box. And again, that would be the best way to do it. Although we know that some may be putting them into the chat box. But we're going to tell you a little bit about Gettysburg College now. So I want you to know what you're seeing. Where Gettysburg College ends is where a national park begins. The nickname is, of course, the Gettysburg Battlefield, but it's the Gettysburg National Military Park by formal name. What makes us different is this. Gettysburg College was founded by abolitionists on land donated by a pretty famous abolitionist named Thaddeus Stevens. So we're surrounded by beauty and history, yet in a world-famous town, and that world-famous town means that we're accepting millions of people some years. So there are restaurants, shops, galleries, live music, theaters, shopping that most college towns will never have because we're not locally or regionally famous. We are world famous. This is a little bit about Gettysburg College that we want you to know. You know, it's about understanding that our students do literally come from everywhere. That student-faculty ratio is real. Our location makes us different. If you can see the orange map in the middle, we're only an hour from Baltimore. We're an hour and 20 minutes from Washington, D.C. We're 2 hours from Philly, about 4 hours from New York City. So when it comes to cultural engagement, educational engagement, career opportunities, exposure to all sorts of opportunities, and community service, which is important for us. Social justice work is how we live here. We provide access to those cities, and we know that we have people joining us from all over the nation. What's great is that we have a transportation shuttle service that students can book for a nominal fee, so that before and after breaks, if they're flying in, taking a train in, a Gettysburg College driver will come get them. And those shuttles run 6 times a day from every 3 hours from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. When you think about engagement outside of the classroom, obviously that's important to our students. And again, people could be admitted for any reason, but we're also looking at them to live full lives on campus and to be engaged in different ways. And we know, of course, that living a great life in college doesn't really matter unless people have careers afterwards. So, Tyra, I'm going to have you talk a little bit about how Gettysburg College works with people to get them careers, not jobs. So using the Gettysburg network and opportunities that we provide.
For sure. Our Center for Career Engagement is awesome. Everyone from Jamie and Chris and Mark and the entire team. The fantastic thing is that students can start talking with our Center for Career Engagement as soon as they step foot on campus. So there's no waiting around. There's no junior year, senior year. As soon as they step foot on campus, and they'll do everything from resume writing and cover letter writing to actual programming, right? So job fairs, internship fairs, networking dinners, job shadowing opportunities for a day, externships, which are about a week-long shadowing experience, and then internships. Over 80% of our students will have at least one before they graduate. As an alum, I had one every single summer. So there are definitely opportunities there for our students. And I think, you come in, you sit down, you say, I'm interested in this. How am I going to get connected? And whether that's a dinner or whether that is something else, you get connected. And if you love it, you continue in that. The fact that our alumni network is so vast means that we have representation globally and pretty much in every field. So you have access to that, and we'll help our students connect with pretty much professionals in any field. So it's kind of a little bit of how the Center for Career Engagement works, and we're happy to discuss more.
And Gail, I'd love to have you talk about the admissions process, please.
Sure, Daryl, I'd be glad to. So our admissions process is really a holistic process. It's also highly competitive. We receive about 6,500 applications for a class of about 685 in this incoming freshman class. We use a common application. The student's academic transcript is the foundation upon which we build an admissions decision. We understand our students are coming from many different types of high schools. We never penalize a student for decisions their high school makes. We like to see that students have taken the most that they can and gotten the most that they can out of their high school experience. We're a residential college, so we're looking at ways in which students make a difference. And I said earlier, that students sometimes are coming to us thinking that they need to have a long laundry list of extracurricular activities. And what I'm most interested in is students who have made a difference. And so sometimes students are making a difference by childcare at home, or working part-time, or perhaps there's just one or two really important activities that they're doing inside of school or outside of school. We just simply like to see that students are making a difference in their community and prepared for what those responsibilities might be on the residential college campus. We're looking at recommendations. We require one teacher recommendation and a counselor recommendation. Some counselors will let us know that they're not in a situation where they can write a recommendation for a student. So the Common Application School Report form is fine. We are test optional. And I mentioned before that we're very adept at making admissions decisions. What I love about the admissions process and the application process is that it really is all about a student's story. And I love that. You know, we're reading 6,500 students' stories. The essay plays a role in that. And we also encourage a virtual interview during these COVID times, and my staff is finding them to be really meaningful. And the interview is a conversation. You know, it's not designed to be stressful for students. It's designed for us to add personality to their application and to provide a three-dimensional view. So it is a holistic process. We offer early decision 1 and 2 and regular decision. Students applying early decision will receive an acceptance packet with their financial aid information if they have filed the FAFSA and profile on time within a month after the deadlines. And we're generally releasing decisions into a student's portal for regular decision about 2 months after the deadline date. So we love this part of our work. We love being able to hear from you and really learn about all of the things that make students unique and special. Our financial aid process at Gettysburg is also a thoughtful one as well. We require the FAFSA and the profile for that first year. We offer merit scholarships. The only merit scholarship that requires an application is the Eisenhower Scholarship, and that's a scholarship that centers around civic engagement. So we're interested in hearing from students who have some thoughts about civic engagement and some experience along those lines. But everything else, all of our other merit scholarships are based on application review and woven into a need-based financial aid package. I believe last year, we awarded $72 million in aid to our students at Gettysburg. So we're committed to making a Gettysburg education accessible, to students.
So this is our contact information, and one of the things I want to add to what Gail mentioned, and thank you for talking about that, Gail, is we are, again, not new to being test optional. So the idea of awarding these merit scholarships without testing is pretty easy for us. We know that some other places have a little work and training to do. But at Gettysburg College, because we truly do take a human approach to how we make decisions and how we sit across the table from one another, and how our entire staff takes part in the process of working with community-based organizations and charter schools, as Gail mentioned, means that we know where we're going when we're reading. We understand the context of your students, and that will give us far more information than what an SAT or ACT is. We did have a few questions that are in the chat, and so one of the questions that was voted up several times is, how can students with limited technology access connect with us? So Gail, would you like to answer that one on how we make ourselves accessible to students and the many ways we do it for people who might not have the best access to technology, please?
Yes, Daryl, I'd be glad to answer that question. It's a challenging time, isn't it? Because we're so used to being in person. We are in-person people, and we like meeting students where they are. But we're just not in a situation to be able to do that. So if students have limited access to technology, but they do have access to a phone, we'd be glad to talk with them. And we're on the phone all of the time with students. If they're able to send us an email, if they have access to email, and let us know what would be a good time for us to connect over the phone, we will be there for your students. Or if it's better for them to be talking with you and you then get in touch with us as an important advocate and intermediary, we can also work that way as well. But we understand that technology is limiting. Sometimes students we know are just, there might be one device for the whole family, and there's limited time on that device. So we do have Sunday opportunities available to talk with students also, if that makes it easier for them.
And before I forget, shout out to our colleague, Courtney Best, who is actually in Vancouver in the Pacific Northwest, who does a lot of work with our West Coast community-based organizations and charter schools for managing the chat and our questions. Another question that we had is, do you have suggestions for application process for undocumented students? So Gettysburg College, we recommend that students use the International Student Financial Aid application. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is that students are not submitting something electronically that might allow them to be tracked as carefully. And so it's certainly necessary to tell them, look, it is, again, a competitive process, but we are able to aid and admit students who are undocumented, and who knows where the political winds might blow over the next 4 years, but maybe those students will be a little more welcomed in the United States. And that was not a political statement. That was just humanistic. Another question is, how can counselors from CBOs best support their students in the application process? So Tyra, if you could talk about that, please.
For sure. And I think that, it comes down to relationship building, and knowing who your liaisons are and making sure that you are communicating with them. And it's on them as much as it is on you to reach out and do things. For example, I am, liaison through Philadelphia Futures. And so we've already done a virtual interview day. We're doing case studies. I can understand the group, and so that helps me advocate for them in the application process. So I think just relationship building and making sure that we are connecting as much as possible so that we can better advocate for your students.
Thank you, Tyra. And we did have a question, and thank you for answering that, Courtney, on testing. We are not in the business of telling people to apply test optional or apply with testing if they're close to our averages, which last year was a 30 on the ACT, and the precise number was a 1343 on the SAT. But I want you to think of it this way, friends. We understand that school, whether it's remote, hybrid, or whatever it might be right now, is still 180 days. That's 180 days of consistency, diligence, attitude, and overcoming. So have your students focus on what they are doing from day to day and managing that. If any year is a good year to be forgiven for things because you've been affected and there is a COVID-19 question on the Common Application, it's now. But remember what Gail said, we go old school. We actually will take phone calls. We will take emails. We will talk to people so that they don't have to be on a high-speed line to interview if they don't have one. We have another question about who will take care of our students after they are on campus. So my first answer, and again, thank you, Courtney, for taking that one. But our Office of Multicultural Engagement, as Tyra mentioned, is literally with us from the moment. We do miss the days that we can fly your students in, train them in, bus them in, but they are there as part of the recruiting process so that students and families understand who is responsible for success and retention. What I love about what our Office of Multicultural Engagement does is that if there is a Center for Career Engagement workshop to which everyone is invited, that workshop is also duplicated in the Office of Multicultural Engagement, which means students may get to hear it twice, once in a place that they feel psychologically is their home.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, if a student is taking the majority of their classes virtually because of COVID, how do you foster a sense of college community? Gosh, we could all talk about that, but I'll give that one out to Gail. I mean, that's one that, because I co-present with a couple of faculty members, and we all do pretty often, we work hard at it. But Gail, what would you say that we do really well to keep students engaged when they're remote?
So we have a phrase here called better together, right? And we're very focused on community. And our faculty are very engaged with their students remotely as much as they might be in their in-person classes. We also, in our Office of Multicultural Engagement, they have this whole series of Zoom activities and events that are so impressive, and students attend them on a regular basis because Gettysburg students want to be connected with each other and also be connected with their friends. We're also doing things through our well-being and campus recreation program that is also working with students. There's mindfulness meditation programs, there's online campus rec activities. There's also college life social activities on Zoom as well. So there's a variety of things. Just a few weeks ago, I was walking on campus and I saw one of our professors taking pictures of various campus locations. And I said, it was Bill Bowman in our history department. And I said, Bill, what are you doing? And every day he sends a different picture to his class to remind them, right, of Gettysburg College. So I've been really pleased and impressed and enormously proud, of our faculty and our staff as we've navigated this time, and also worked to create community from afar. Over the summer also, our faculty participated in a pedagogy institute on virtual teaching. So from, through the summer, their kind of ability to engage students virtually really, really improved.
We had another great question here about, and I think we should all take a shot at this one. What are some ways that we review students who don't come from schools? Here's the way we can put it.
Yeah.
Schools that don't have the same resource. And actually, you are fortunate because on this webinar right now, we have Courtney, who is our West Coast person, me, who handles New York and the Midwest. We have Tyra, who holds it down in Philly. Gail, who has been in New York, Washington, D.C., New England. She has been everywhere and has worked nationally with the KIP network and several others. So my take is that we review people within the context of what they are given, not within the context of what they don't have. So when we're in committee, again, because our whole staff works in multicultural recruitment, I don't have to worry about people going, oh, where are all the APs when there aren't any? We know that. I don't have to worry about people saying, well, this student didn't do as much community service. We know that if they're commuting an hour and a half to a charter school in Chicago or New York City or Los Angeles, that's just not a possibility. So my short end is, we're not going to say to students, oh, you don't have these things that aren't offered at your school and be penalized. Gail, what would you add, please?
Well, our job in admissions is to understand high schools and to be able to read students within context of their environment. And we're good at it. You know, we work hard at it. We train new admission staff to be also competent at it as well. I'm fortunate. I have a team with a lot of experience. And, you know, these are students, right? We all applied to college once. Right? And we understand what that felt like. And so students have put a lot of effort into that application, and we're going to read every word of that application, right? For better or for worse sometimes. But I think that understanding high schools is what we do. And if we don't know something, we pick up the phone. Or if something seems odd, we pick up the phone and ask the question. The school profile matters. You know, even schools that may be under-resourced will include a school profile, and that helps answer some questions also.
Thank you for that, Gail. And Tyra, what would you add to that, please?
I think that you both kind of summed it up really well. The only thing I would add is, you know, pushing past how we read it, but then how your students fit in academically at Gettysburg, right? Because Gettysburg is an academically rigorous institution of the liberal arts and sciences. And so you have all of these majors and things that they're going to be doing in class. And I think that sometimes there might be some worry about adjusting to workload or being able to do the work, et cetera. And these students are going to do the work, right? We see their transcripts, we see the history, we see the 4 years of what they're doing and the effort that they've put in. And to add to that, just to make sure that, again, they have that success, we have the Writing Center. The Office of Multicultural Engagement has a tutor that comes in several times a week. Right? Academic advising is available. And so not only can students reach out, but it's a community enough that we can see if they need help as well. Right? That's the only thing I would add about academically making the jump.
So here's what we know. And we're fortunate to have the leadership we have in Gail. And Gail, you know, I thank you all the time, so may as well thank you in front of the nation. But the fact that we were sadly still one of the few places that actually has the entire staff take part in this work with all of you means that we're going to better understand things. So even though we all know the term holistic is used pretty often, the other term we can use in our office is humanistic. So Gail reminds us, every single word on every single page of every single application is not just an image on our screens. They represent a human teenager that has value and hard work that has value and a person who has a soul and value. So we want you to remember that with Gettysburg College, that is what you get. You get fairness, you get attention, and you get time. Mm-hmm. Why, with so many of our opportunities, we will say, oh, you have a community-based organization or a charter school or a population that needs a special presentation, let us know. Gail, Tyra, myself, Courtney, the whole crew is ready to do that. Here's what else I know. If it needs to be on a Saturday, it needs to be on a Sunday, if it needs to be in an evening. And it's not even about Gettysburg, it's about the needs that you have of a message to be reinforced, we are right there with you. And the next thing I know is this. I know, Gail, I'm getting fired up, but Gail and Tyra knew that this was coming. Notice that at no time did we talk about these cliched phrases like extracurricular opportunities. You heard Gail earlier say that we understand, especially now, if people have to work to support their families, that responsibility and that maturity is just as important as playing a sport or doing something in music. So this statement is one I'm going to make to you so that you understand it, and this is about justice. Gettysburg College has been a leader in making sure that the work of inclusion is inclusive and involves more than just admission staff, more than the Office of Multicultural Engagement, having as an example a fluent Spanish speaker in our Center for Career Engagement, offering opportunities through the Eisenhower Institute, the Center for Public Service, and many other people means this. We think it's okay to be a rigorous institution, and we think it's also okay to care. So I just want to close by thanking Jonathan, Courtney in the background, Gail and Tyra, but mostly all of you for doing all that you do to make sure that your students are as connected to success as their peers who are more privileged. Your questions were great. Your engagement was great. So thank you. Jonathan?
Yeah. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Gail. And thank you, Tyra. Really a meaningful presentation. As I said at the introduction, Gettysburg is such a great champion for access. That is really, it's great to have you as part of our community. I guess, Daryl, one question for you. I need a plug for Thursday. Tell us what's going to happen for our Thursday webinar and why, everyone who's listening, their students should be attending.
We are so excited. Tell your students about it. So we're going to have I can still call him young man because he's younger than I am, but a young man named Troy Datcher, who came to us at a time in the mid-'80s when most selective colleges of liberal arts and sciences had very little diversity, and he led every important thing as an African-American male that you could. He came from Alabama, and not a city in Alabama, and now he is one of the major, being the person who is vice president in charge of customer satisfaction and several other things at Clorox. Clorox, who's been pretty busy since, 2020 began. He's a trustee at Gettysburg College. He has been twice named to the Ebony Power 100. He gives opportunities to students that go beyond just being a trustee. He lives a life of service at a time that somebody of his stature maybe wouldn't have to. He credits Gettysburg College for getting into where he is. So the great opportunity your students will have is hearing from Troy Datcher, and you can Google him. He is the real deal and an amazing human. And he will be interacting with me, and then Darian Davenport, who you heard Tyra talk about from our Office of Multicultural Engagement. I know we all love him, but those two are just the most engaging presenters. And what they're going to do is tell the students you serve, no matter your background, you can rise from where you are to literally being one of the top executives at one of the most powerful corporations in the world. Even when we were talking about it, I was moved because Troy is powerful and Dr. Darian Davenport is just as powerful. So please tell your students to join us. We can't wait. I'm a little fired up about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Daryl, and thank you all. Thank you all, our counselor community, for being here. We really appreciate your time. Your commitment to this great work. Yeah, thank you all. Hopefully we'll see your students on Thursday, and I will sign off. Yeah, everyone have a good day. We'll
Bye,
talk soon.
everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Hi.